Hello, everybody. Welcome to Where is the Line, where we explore the gray areas of life. My name is Jane, and I am once again with my lovely co-host, Sabrina. Sabrina, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. A little bit stressed. This new job has really gotten me going now, and I'm in the thick of it, and I keep losing track of time. But otherwise, yeah, just still looking ahead and trying to find my footing in the career in this job and preparing for my move, which by the time this airs, I might have already moved to San Francisco. So for those of you that don't know, I'm moving to San Francisco, but otherwise, yeah, trying to stay optimistic on that front and just getting all this logistical stuff done.
Oh
What
my
about you?
gosh. I'm good. Certainly not going through as stressful of a time as you are, but we're proud of you from taking a big step with this new company. And of course, there's going to be like natural changes that happens, and change is always difficult. So we're proud
Mhm.
of all the things that you're doing.
Thank
I'm
you.
good. I'm good. Not much is happening on my end. Things are just busy, and Kyle and I, for folks who don't know, we live very close to the lake here in Chicago. And I always tell people, I'm like, I am a West Coast elite. I have to live by the water. And so we luckily live by the lake here. And I always tell people, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to the beach every single weekend. And I'm literally the worst at going to the beach. So now I'm having like a crisis as we think about potentially buying a new home later this year, early next year. So I'm like, oh, should I still live by the beach or
I'm excited. You're gonna be like a suburb girl or something.
no, don't say that. I did grow up in the suburbs, but no, I don't think I'm ready yet. I don't think I'm ready yet. Anyways,
Stay
I will
tuned.
I will keep people updated on my little real estate mogul journey is what I'm calling it.
Awesome.
Anyways, with that said, Sabrina, today we have quite a vulnerable conversation, not to use the word vulnerable as a pun, but we are talking about mental health. We are talking about male vulnerability. But before we get into it, can you introduce us to our guest today?
Yes, it is my absolute pleasure and such an honor that we have my dear friend Kevin Cow on. Kevin is honestly one of the most genuine souls I've met, and his energy, his openness, his authenticity, his like love for just life, friends, and how he makes everyone just feel so included and cared for. I'm super inspired by him and really just thankful that he's coming on today to talk about this very quite vulnerable subject, right? And it was just Mental Health Awareness Month. So we really want to shed more light on a topic that is quite under discussed, right, in society,
Mhm.
based on certain stigmas. And we want to help normalize mental health, especially in men, more so that men feel more comfortable opening up. And by having Kevin on here today, I'm very hopeful that it will inspire more conversations, hopefully among men especially, and encourage them to open up. So, Kevin, hello. Please let our audience know a little bit more about you and what you're up to, where you come from, etc.
Sabrina, that was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Hi everyone. My name is Kevin Cow. I am currently an admin slash overviewing a physical therapy clinic over in St. Louis Park. I am also working towards becoming a sous chef currently. It feels kind of surreal because I felt like about like a year ago, I was literally listening to your guys' podcast for the first time driving home to St. Cloud. It was like I believe it was a topic regarding like self healing after a breakup, and it was something that Sam said that really struck a chord with me, and I started like kind of like tearing up a little bit. And then suddenly someone cut me off, and I like started road raging, and then I came back to like just like really getting deep in my feels again. It's a great honor and pleasure to be on the podcast. Thank you so much for having me, and really excited to be here.
And Kevin is based in Minneapolis, just like myself. So for those people in Minneapolis, make sure to reach out to him. Let's set the stage a little bit first, Kevin. So when we talk about vulnerability, right? Like what does it really mean in the context of masculinity? I think vulnerability is a very broad term, right? And so I would love to hear from you and then also from Jane, like what does vulnerability mean to you? And also, so Kevin, starting with you, what does it mean to you? And tell us also why it is important for you to talk about this. And so also recognizing that in society and with men, right, like given those societal expectations, vulnerability can be seen as kind of like maybe weak, especially because men are supposed to be strong, etc. So yeah, what does it mean to you and why is it important?
I think when I hear the word vulnerability, I think of fear. And like it's like the fear of just being embarrassed, the fear of being rejected, the fear of just like not being good enough. And by really delving deep into that, like it's like you can, if you take the time to really look at it, you can find yourself in a way where like you can look at yourself from a different perspective. Because like you said, like societal norms, like we look at men as being very strong, being leaders. You kind of peel those layers back a little bit, kind of like when, you know, when you're in Shrek, you're like peeling the onions back. I don't know, like there's just so much more to just being strong, because you can't be strong until you know what it's like to be weak. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what my views on that.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
very powerful. It reminds me of also what Brené Brown talks about, like how two things can be true at the same time and how you
Mhm.
can be strong and soft, right? And weak has also has this, I wouldn't even say weak, like weak has such a bad connotation to it, right? So I think if we reposition it from like vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, right? It's actually making you even stronger if you are vulnerable because you are opening up to your point, the insecurities, etc. So how has vulnerability played a part in your life, like both professionally or personally?
I've had so much grief in my life where like I really wasn't able to process my emotions because I was so afraid of being vulnerable. Like I just like kept thinking that I could shoulder every kind of responsibility and every issue on myself. But then it kind of eventually plagued me where like I started developing really bad habits, whether it be just drinking a lot more, partying, and like just like not really taking care of myself. Didn't really recognize myself. It was kind of like a out of body experience. Just not seeing life in there. It kind of made me realize that I should probably address my emotions a little bit more. I should seek professional help. Take the time to kind of take a step back and just get more in tune with my emotions, hear what it is that they're trying to tell me. Because you can only push it away for so long until it starts developing really bad habits. And you just like kind of lose yourself in a way. And but thinking about it, sometimes losing yourself, it also allows you to find yourself again. So
Yeah, I think what really resonates with me, especially as you're talking through the definition, Sabrina, I agree with you. I hope people don't see it as strength versus weakness, because I almost feel like people who are in touch with their feelings and more aware and able to confront their own feelings are actually the stronger people. I mean, Kevin, to literally what you just shared your experiences, you were avoiding it, right? Like you were going out, doing all these things to keep yourself occupied. By the time you realize and started to face the reality that you were living with, like it was too late and you should have, confronted it earlier. And I think a lot of it actually shows strength when you can be vulnerable and be in touch with yourself earlier in that process so that you can like work on it, address it, and like do what you need to do rather than avoiding. Like avoiding in a way is actually weaker, like in my mind.
Great.
yep.
But Kevin, would love to hear from your perspective. How has this topic or this term like male vulnerability changed over time, right? Because I think many of us maybe grow up seeing male figures not be so in touch with their
Mhm.
emotions, or like people we see online are certain behave a certain way. Um, have you seen how that trend has changed?
As time progressed, males always have to be like very stoic. They have like this
Mhm.
heroism, being a lot more emotional. It just made it feel like you were a lot weaker. You didn't seem as strong. You know, as time progressed, we're gaining more and more susceptible to like men being able to be more vulnerable.
And how did you go through this transition? Like you mentioned, there were situations where you kind of noticed that you weren't really in touch with yourself. You were avoiding a lot of the issues. Was that like a moment that made you go through this process, or was this kind of a longer term process of going through a self-discovery phase?
Looked at myself and I'm just like, I really don't like recognize myself. The giant bags underneath my eyes, didn't see life there. That in turn kind of made me take a step back and just started to appreciate a lot more of the things around me. I felt so alone in a way where like I just kept I felt like I just kept going and going and going, trying to make connections that weren't authentic and true, because like, doing it only because I was just trying to avoid myself. Yes, focus on the things that are really important to me was what kind of really helped me figure it out. Like, you know, sometimes it's like for me, being vulnerable is it's my identity. I can be really outgoing, but like if I don't have my sense of self or my sense of identity, then like really who am I?
I'm curious, what are some of the common challenges? Because I think myself, like as a woman, it's a lot more accepted to be vulnerable. We see that on media. It's totally okay for women to express emotion, to feel emotion.
Hmm.
What about men? Like, I would love to hear it from your perspective because I don't think I personally, like, I'm sure there's a lot of limitations on social media and what we see on media probably projects in how we feel, how we should behave. But what's been your experience with the challenges?
Stigma around like men showing emotions, like it can go like so many different ways, but one of the ways like I like kind of like noticed it, I was at the restaurant last night and I was like mopping up, cleaning up. Coworkers were playing some pretty cool music. One of them was like Alicia Keys, like If I Ain't Got You, and I'm just like going around like kind of like just sweeping singing that song, and I'm like, you know, like if you weren't in touch with your emotions, if you as a male weren't comfortable being vulnerable, there's no chance that you'll be able to sing the song at the top of your lungs. Watching a movie or like a show, something that like really hits you, being able to just like really feel those emotions, feel that like why that resonates with you is super important as a male. So
Yeah.
On that note, though, just to double down, because I think you're pretty unique, right? That you can embrace those emotions. And clearly you had this wake-up call, right? Where you didn't recognize yourself. But also, Kevin, like as you look around at your friends, and I'm looking at the kickball league, like the men there, like what do you think holds them back from also showing those emotions? I'm just super curious. I think you have like a unique, maybe I want to say advantage, because I think there's a lot of work that you're doing as well. But why, as you compare yourself against like maybe like the average men that you see around yourself, what do you think is it that holds them back? I have some assumptions.
what separates me from like the other men in the league is pride. Pride and ego are one of those like really important things to have as a man, because like they are what gives you your sense of strength and your sense of identity. But when it's that is being challenged, or when you show too much emotions, that takes it away from that popularity. Like pride, like when you see someone that's prideful or seems like they have their life together, you are more attracted to that person. Like you want to be around them more, compared to someone who shows a lot more emotions and vulnerability, where like if you're not at that stage in your life, then it's a little bit more difficult for you to resonate with that person.
Yeah.
So kind of my take on that.
Sabrina, I'm curious what your suspicion is because I think for me, it's definitely that. Like, I think a lot of people are scared to be in touch with their, whether it's inner thoughts or whatever, right? Or like the struggles that they're going through. And I think a lot of times, so that's one, because there's two components. There is the being in touch with yourself. That's number one. You have to start there. And then it's like being able to express yourself, which I think, Kevin, you touched on, like being able to sing or being able to like certain artists, right? Whatever. Why does that have to be a masculine, feminine thing? But I think a lot of people are like scared of judgment. Growing up, we would call people names. Like, I know I'm guilty of that. That's the environment that we grew up in. And I think that
Mhm.
probably created a lot of insecurities or limitations or the fear of judgment.
It doesn't come from nowhere, right? There is a whole like history of it. But yeah, it is definitely insecurities, fear, pride, ego, all the things.
Kevin, one of the things that when Sabrina and I were planning this particular episode, we were kind of debating because we were like, okay, how do we actually define masculine, feminine, right? Like, because a lot of these things we tend to feel like it's more feminine, quote unquote. And so we started talking about this idea of masculine energy. And one thing I'm wondering is, I wonder if some of the limitations or challenges that we were just talking about as to why like people don't feel comfortable opening up, or like men in particular, fear that judgment is because the way we identify the energies. So for our audience who are listening, just so you all know, the definition for masculine energy is often associated with action, logic, structure, strength, assertiveness. And then feminine energy is more around intuition, creativity, nurturing, empathy, right? So Kevin, would love your perspective on, do you feel that the way we identify these energies limit the way men kind of identify themselves?
Yeah, I would definitely say it does limit us because I guess it also kind of depends on like how you were brought up as well. Because I was brought up in a household where like showing a lot of empathy and emotion was considered as like not stereotypical to what a man would do. Whenever I would like hurt myself or like if I had like an issue or like some like kind of problem or like if I was sad, trying to tell my parents that like they wouldn't really understand it. They would just tell me like they'd be like, hey, like you're a man, like you should be a lot more stoic. You should be setting an example for your little brothers. You should be like pretty much like a leader for them in the culture that which I was like raised up on and in the culture that they were raised up on. It was just like those emotions kind of limited me so much to where like I couldn't be in touch with my emotions because I was afraid that that was out of the social norm of what was expected of me. And like sometimes now, like I don't know how to really express that because I'm just still trying to unlearn what it is that my parents showed me.
Family upbringing, I feel like that's a whole thing. I think it really does ingrain a lot of beliefs in ourselves, and we continue our lives living that belief. And in reality, like, I mean, Sabrina, we were talking about how women can be just as logical. We can just, be as strong as men. We can do all these things that tend to fall into masculine energy. And I actually think as we're having this conversation, I actually feel like women experience like the opposite issue, right? A lot of times at the workplace, when we are being assertive, which is AKA male energy, people like call us bitchy. People like there are terms for women who exude a lot of these masculine energy. We're having the same conversation, right? Vice versa for men who are empathetic and sympathetic and collaborative and like exude feminine energy. It's hard for them to do that as well. Like we experience the same problem, just
Yeah.
vice versa.
I love that you brought that up, Jane, because I also think we might be doing ourselves a disservice in calling it like masculine and feminine
Hmm.
energy. And we, the three of us, we understand it, right? Because we are now talking about it. And when you've done some of that self-work, you know that one thing doesn't limit the other, right? It's not like one against the other. Like yin and yang, they should work in tandem and you can have
Hmm.
things of both. But I worry, and hopefully for future generations, this will become more normalized that a young boy that's growing up doesn't just think he needs to fit into this masculine energy bucket, right? And there's no way to show feminine energy. Like I think more and more, hopefully more families can do a better job of instilling in their children that this is both, again, like working in concert and you can have characteristics from both sides and they're both equally as beautiful and important. That's just my 2 cents.
I 100% agree. I feel like that's how we become a more well-rounded person, right? Is to be able to like embrace all these different skill sets. But Kevin, I mean, we're on the topic of parenting, right? How your parents raised you. And again, totally agree that we're all the kind of the outcome of our, family and social environments. What can people do? Like, let's just think about moving forward. What can our society, what can we do to further encourage men to be more open about their struggles or to just be more vulnerable in general?
I would say, from my perspective, having someone reach out. You don't have to do something that's like super complicated. Asking how your day is. You may not think that it's very impactful, but buttons can lead to so many different things because I won't ever really know what it is that other people are going to or going through. A lot of my guy friends, like they're amazing human being, what it is that they're going through or how is it they're feeling until like I kind of like put a hand down, just like be like, hey, how are you doing today? Like it's just like those little things like that can really add up to a lot. Like you build close relationships not because you wish it, but because you take the action. It doesn't take that much out of your day just to kind of just ask how someone's really doing.
I like that a lot, Kevin. And I think it's a great reminder for all of us, right? We probably assume everyone's doing fine, but just you should never assume. And a question to your point, like, how are you really doing, goes a long way. If they then still don't want to share, that's like we have to respect that, right? But at least I think starting from a place of authenticity and what helped me also when I tried to ask someone or get them to open up is like leading with my own vulnerability, like sharing more about how I'm feeling and my struggles and if it's a safe space, like inviting them to do the same. So but yeah, I love that you're bringing that up because it is so important, and not never assuming everyone is just doing fine because we don't know. On that note, actually, social media, right? That's a big part because when I look at my Instagram and I just open up the stories and everyone's on there showing off their highlight reel, right? And you just assume everyone's doing fabulous. What do you think social media has done to both propel and then pull back male vulnerability? So, like in terms of propelling, do you think social media is a positive in that maybe men can open up more, or maybe find a platform or find like groups of men through social media?
I feel like with also social media as well, like it can kind of give you like a little bit of a skewed image. With social media, you're always seeing like the best sides of a lot of things. I'm comfortable posting how I feel and like the things that I've been through social media because like I want to be able to be there to have like someone resonate with what you said on like your story. Like I saw your post. I really appreciate the fact that you opened up to that because I feel like nowadays not a lot of people are able to open up like that. And it's just like stuff like that where like people reaching out is what really like inspires me to be able to post stuff like that. Whereas compared to other people where like if you are not comfortable with that, then I can see how it can be a little bit more difficult for you to create like a safe place for like other people to like interact with you.
Kevin, I feel like you are exemplifying it for other people, right? Like by sharing your, because that's what I imagine is the benefit. Because a lot of times I think, even going back to your experience with your parents teaching you a certain way, like that's what you believe. That's how like you live your life. And a lot of times I think, I hope that the internet or social media can create space for people, but then too, if somebody is very like silent and quiet about their struggles, they can at least see that other people are having similar issues, going through similar things, and maybe at least feel some sort of community beyond just what they're feeling alone.
I just want to give a plug to Kevin because he has gone through a ton of hardship in his life and a lot of challenges and very dark, deep spaces, right? And for you to, ever since I know you, right, you have been pretty open on social media, which I was at first I was like really surprised,
Mhm.
and now I find it really inspiring, in how you like vulnerability begets vulnerability, right? So you opening yourself up about these hardships is, I'm sure, and I'm sure you've seen it, right, with the reactions you're getting and the comments of other people feeling inspired to do the same. So again, I'm hopeful for our men in this world and for the future men that through more examples like yourselves and keep up opening up about these things, Kevin, that you're inspiring so many more. And that's all we can do, I think, just normalizing that not all is rosy and that we all have our own challenges, right? So I really love that you are so open about that, and we need more of that.
Yeah, it can definitely be really uncomfortable at times, to be honest with you. Like the messages that people like send me or like the comments, I see them all. Like, but like sometimes like I just like I'm not looking for praise. I'm just like here to be like, hey, like I'm just telling you now, this is my life. It's definitely gone to shit, and I just want to be able to create a space for people that can just feel as comfortable because people reach out to me and they're like, we never even realized that you were going through that or you felt that certain way, but like I've already realized and accepted that I've already went through that, and I kind of already came to peace with it and kind of took what it is that was trying to teach me and bring it to life. And that's why it was so easy for me to post it. Some of the stuff that I say, it can be really heavy. Don't get me wrong. I'm a very emotional guy. I put my heart out there, best foot forward. But like sometimes to other people who aren't at that stage in their life yet, it can be very difficult for them to kind of understand that or really understand the more of the meaning of what it is that I'm trying to say or express for others because I don't want to do it for likes. I don't care about likes. Like I'm just just trying to get back to what was given to me. And at the end of the day, if that's what I can achieve, then I can go to bed at least, happy, knowing that I did something for somebody.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
also I'm hopeful because hearing your story and hearing how much you've shared with like your network. I mean, I even see this happen at scale, right? Like I don't know, things like TikTok. Like sure, there are a lot of toxic things about social media, but I do also see like glimpses of hope where, for example, a lot of times there are family vloggers or TikTokers or whatever, right? And then the both parents are very in touch with their emotions. They are they're helping each other and being great partners to each other and being very in touch with themselves. Like, and then you see people in the comments like expecting that types of relationship or that type of partner out of their future partner. And I can also imagine like the younger generation would see how there are dads or moms that are very in touch with their feelings, and it gives them the example, even if it doesn't have to be their own parents. And so I'm hoping that, Kevin, what you are sharing and a lot of the hopefully good examples on social media are, giving whether it's us or the future generation examples.
Yeah, I really hope so too. And I mean, we know, right? Men are just in general less likely to seek help for mental health issues compared to women, right? Also, actually, the CDC came out with a study that men die by suicide in the US at 4 times the rate than women. And so it's just, there are correlations of like not asking for help, suppressing your emotions, and then doing the worst, right? So really, I think the inability to express your emotions can really lead to isolation and loneliness and all the things, right? So I think it's just such a critical reminder of that opening up about how you feel can actually really like help you, right? Even if sometimes you don't see that. So obviously, Kevin, you are someone that has opened up a lot, but what do you think for like men that may not be as open? Like, have you seen examples of how if you don't share about your emotions, if you suppress your vulnerability, like what effect have you seen that have on like mental health in general among men?
When I was like for the past like 3-4 years or so, I've just like been really suppressing my emotions. It's led me to get a little bit of like paranoia in a way where it's really hard for me to open up to someone, because if I do open up to them, that eventually either they're just gonna like walk away from me and like break my heart, or like the friendship won't last. I already keep a distance and a boundary, like maybe they won't even get close to me. But and then that in turn leads me to spiral to like questioning my own self and like my own worth, and not really knowing or like grasping what it is that I want in life. And then that in turns make it so that I don't know who I am at the end of the day. And it's quite lonely. It's a really lonely journey. Self-discovery is like also being able to be vulnerable. And if you can't be vulnerable with not only the people around you, but also yourself, you're going to just keep digging yourself a deeper well, and you're just going to eventually just lose yourself. So it's tough.
Mm. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it is really about if you had the choice, if you don't open up, that would be obviously way worse, right? And it can lead to isolation and further digging yourself in a hole.
Mhm.
So hopefully this inspires people to seek help, whether it's from your support system, right? I hope everyone has one, whether it's one friend, right? Whether it's one parent, at least opening up is better than the opposite, which is just
Mhm.
not saying anything. Is that?
Right. Yeah, we always think that like people don't ever want to listen to us, or like that people that like what it is that we're going through is kind of silly or ridiculous. But a lot of times there's a lot of good people out there that are very much willing to listen to you. Like literally right before this podcast, I was at therapy. I was expressing my emotions. I'm like, wow, I'm kind of nervous, but like I'm also like excited. And then she was just like kind of talking to me about a lot of those things. And like for some weird reason, before every therapy session, like I like my hands get really like sweaty and palmy. So I'm like kind of got like nervous. I'm like, damn, I'm really about to expose myself here. But like, what is it that I was like thinking about beforehand? I'm not really thinking about it now, because like, Margie was already like listening to me. So it's fantastic. So yeah, if you're listening to this, 10 out of 10 would recommend therapy.
You should be a spokesperson for BetterHelp.
I love that because I feel like here's the thing. I mean, as you're speaking, there's so many things going through my mind. Like one, I I actually feel like people who are vulnerable, every time I'll use myself as an example. I feel like when I'm being vulnerable, that's actually how I build community. The way I build trust with people and the way that I've like built my community is through a lot of these vulnerable moments, whether it's myself or them. But I actually feel like by being vulnerable, not only do you get the help, but also like the support system, the people around you, the relationship, like a lot of that can improve. But then at the same time, for people, or maybe some men who are listening to our podcast, if you're struggling with opening up, you can always go to therapy. You don't have to tell your friends.
Yes.
If you're fear of judgment, fine. All of us, we're all nervous about judgment. But listen, your therapist, they're not supposed to judge you. Also, shout out to my therapist, Nicole. Love her. She calls me out for my BS, but after every session, I feel so much better, and my problems are actually not that big of a problem. It sounds like therapy is clearly like an outlet for you, a place where you can kind of talk through things and go through that discovery process. What else has helped you? And like help us understand. It's probably a variety of different things in addition to therapy. But what's been your like support system through this whole thing?
I would say my support system, just like a lot of the friends around me, you are who you surround yourself with. And when you surround yourself with people that are very negative, people who are not goal oriented, like it's like it can create like quite a toxic environment for you. But if you surround yourself with people that are very like minded like you, people that are very goal driven, people that are willing to just literally take time out of their day and like listen to you, and before you are vulnerable, you're lonely. But when you're vulnerable to someone that you trust, you grow closer with them, you build a community. It's because when you're lonely, that's your weakest self. That's when you are like literally like your truest, most authentic self. Because when you're vulnerable and when you're weak, that's like literally you have nothing left. So like pretty much you're just opening your heart out there. And by doing that, you're able to connect so much more with the people around you. My ability to like talk to people now that I've been able to like be just more my authentic self and more vulnerable, and finally just sit down and really like just hear what other people are saying, say thank you for a compliment when someone gives it to me, like so much more in tune with yourself and having like a good circle that to be there for you. You don't have to have the biggest circle. I used to think that being the most popular person in the world was like one of the best things that you could do. But at the end of the day, it's like, what's the point of having a big circle if a lot of those connections are just very much just empty, like
Mhm.
mindless connections? So like I would rather just have a close group of people that I can really go to and trust, like people that will not only give me advice, but also give me a hug or give me a lending hand when I really need it.
Mhm.
So it's just like having a really good support system is what I would really, really recommend you to do.
One thing that I have observed is that there are men out there who act vulnerable or claim to be vulnerable. Okay, like we're not calling out names here. Um, but I do find that a lot of men are very aware that being vulnerable actually appeals to women, whether it's like in the dating world or whatever. Even on social media, I mean, we talked about social media. A lot of influencers know that like that's a tactic to get more followers, right? So let me like I would love both of your perspectives. Like, do you both feel or experience this to some degree? Sabrina, I know you were in the dating world, so like, did you all experience this? Do you observe this in your friend group?
On that note, I definitely in my dating life and as I've gotten to know men, I think there was like this trend of whenever someone would say, I go to therapy, they would like think they would get more women. So I definitely noticed that, or whether it was like on Hinge profiles or whether you would start a conversation with someone and you would ask them like, yeah, so what have you worked on yourself, or have you worked on yourself lately? Or what is something that you may want to change about yourself? Or and they will be like, yeah, I mean, I went to therapy last month, and so they would think that that would just get me to shut up to talk more about feelings and like emotions. But I think once you, given myself, I've been lucky enough to have done a lot of work on myself and I've gone through this for like 5 years. I think I can detect some of this or smell some of this BS. So it's really, it was a trend that I noticed, but then I just, I can see it, I can see through it pretty quickly. But yeah, it's been interesting. What are your observations in this regard, Kevin?
So I haven't dated in like 3, 4 years now, and not by choice. For the longest time, I just wasn't ready. But in that time of just spending time with myself a lot more, spending time with the people, I can definitely agree with you. A lot of times, like as a guy, like if you want something, you're definitely gonna BS it. Like it's so when you're in touch with yourself and your emotions, you can always tell when someone's bullshitting. In a way, when you're trying to express yourself and be vulnerable, you're doing it not because you want to, but because you're trying to connect with someone. When you're doing it and not being authentic to yourself, you're doing it more for like a purpose and for another reason outside of that connection, whether it be to like get with the person or like trying to like get something else from them. Like, so like it's just like it's so easy to tell when someone is just kind of like BSing it. So
Yeah. That's actually a follow-up on that because given you haven't dated, but as you start to maybe re-enter the dating world, and do you feel like that you're gonna probably ask maybe for different things now in the other gender, or like given you've done so much work on yourself, like can you already foresee that some of these conversations are going to be different than things that you were used to looking for, and maybe now you're asking for slightly different things, that aka someone that is more in touch with their emotions?
if I was ever to go on like date someone again, like I want to be able to find someone who is just as in touch with their emotions as they are with mine. Growing up, like I used to constantly just like want to like have like the prettiest person, someone that's like cool, rich, whatever it is. But like nowadays, like I want someone who is also comfortable enough to be vulnerable with me, because just in case if we were to like get into a fight or something like that, like instead of just like screaming at each other or like accusing of things, we can actually just sit down and have like a genuine conversation. You can't have those kind of conversations with your significant other until you've really gotten in touch with yourself. And I feel like that's kind of the reason why I haven't really dated, because the next time when I date someone, I want to be able to be that person for them, like be able to be like, so in tune with myself, like understand myself so much that like I don't take offense to something that is that they said, or like if they don't want to spend like a lot of time with me, like or like they want to go do off their own thing. You can be your own person, and I want to be comfortable enough where like I can be my own person too.
We're coming up on the end of our podcast. There is one more question because you touched on already sort of how do we all do a better job of creating that safe space for men to open up, right? You said that a question can go a long way, right? Is there anything else that you would want the audience can do today to help create that safe space? Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
I would say for everybody that's viewing, just like when you're looking at someone, just like don't look at them very subjectively. If you're seeing them do something that you're not really aligned with, that's one thing. But like, do understand that everybody that you meet, they're going through a struggle that you don't know of. So like, always be kind. Always understand that like not everybody is perfect. We all mess up. We all screw up. But it's the people that learn from those mistakes and people that are willing and accepting to be weak or like afraid or to face their fear head on and to like seek out to you for guidance and to take actual steps to be a better person. Those are the people that like you should always keep closer to your heart. Like it's just like not everybody is going to be perfect. Not everybody is going to be this fantastic human being. We all have scars on our bodies, but it's kind of like with a tree, you like what is it? You like scratch something on there, the tree will still grow, but like it's just like the scratch will always still be there. You're still always growing. So just take the best in everybody. Like this world's already tough as it is. Just be kind. Like it's like, what's the point of being negative or like hating someone when like it's like you haven't even taken the time to really get to know the struggle that they're going through.
Totally. And you'll never know. Maybe you'll discover that you actually share some of those struggles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is like, we're more alike than we're different, I think I always like to say. And I also love what you said around, we're all these like human beings, right? We're all damaged, but not broken. Like we all have scars, we all have history. So such a good reminder. Thank you for sharing. And then so on the flip side, what would you recommend to men? Like any lasting final advice for men who may struggle with being vulnerable? Also, as I think about, you are really a trailblazer in this. I also love that you're speaking so openly about therapy. I've had so many conversations with men who are reluctant because they see it as a weakness. I also say like you go to the gym to work out, right? You don't just go there once. And in order to really like work on keeping your muscle and maintaining muscle, you have to go on the regular. So same with that, like you want to exercise your brain, your mind, right? And so I hope that more men can just be okay with it's just a session and I'm going to talk about my feelings and I'm going to train my mind and I'm gonna heal my mind, right? Just like I go to the gym to work out. So, but yeah, any lasting advice on your end for men who may struggle with that?
just don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid of fear. Like, fear is very intimidating in a way, like, because like fear can lead to so many different things, such as insecurities and just like a negative self-image. Of keep facing that fear, and if you keep putting yourself out there, eventually you'll conquer that, and that in turn will allow you to push yourself even into further heights. So it's just like, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, oh, rejection. Okay, well, find the next one. Like, it's just like, I don't know. Like, I'm still struggling with this with myself a lot, but like every single time when I see something that really scares me, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things in this world that scare the hell out of me. I just, I run forward to it, and if I trip up, but if I don't make it, then I always get back up and just try again. So
Love that. What a wonderful way to end. Thank you so much. This was honestly a vulnerable conversation. Before we let you go, is there anywhere we can find you? Any projects you're working on? Let our listeners know.
So you can find me on Kevin Not Durant on Instagram or Kevin Cow on Facebook. If you like food content, definitely follow me. I post food content almost every single week, and I always love hearing the feedback from other people, and people giving me advice and stuff. I'm an imperfect person, so please comment away.
Amazing. Thank you. We want to hear from our listeners. Have you experienced this? Do you have family members who struggle with this? Did you grow up in an environment where male vulnerability is not really a thing? And how are you navigating through this change yourself? If you are, we would love to hear from you. You can always email us at whereistthelinepod@gmail.com. And of course, as always, you can subscribe wherever you listen to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will talk to you later. Bye.